To call the meeting to order, please, and welcome everybody here to the September 14th meeting of Summerland Council. First of all, we have adoption of the minutes from August 24th. Are there any errors or omissions, please? Hearing none, could I have a motion to bring and adopt those minutes? Councillor Boot? Who else? Councillor Carlson, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. The motion's carried. Okay, we need a resolution to adopt the agenda. Corporate officer, are there any late items to be added to?
I'm not aware of any. Is there any CAO?
No, we're fine. Okay, got a motion to adopt tonight's agenda, please. Councillor Trainer, Councillor Barkle, all in favor? Thank you, the motion's carried. Do we have any delegations tonight? I don't think so.
We do not.
So no delegations?
No, we have a speaker.
A speaker later?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, now this is the opportunity, number 6, for public comment on any item that is highlighted in our agenda. Is there anybody who would like to come forward and speak to any item that is highlighted in the agenda, please? Okay, we're moving along so quickly here. We'll be not 10 minutes, no.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on to my report, which will make up for the time that we've managed to get through here. The end of August and early September seem rushed and busy as lots of events are squeezed in before school starts for families, and it actually seems a signal to the end of summer. Although when I picked a lot of apples in the past, it seemed to get hot again, but at any rate. For myself and councillors, we have all attended a number of community events. Thursday evening of August 31st, a critical meeting was held to discuss the potential to retain the Presbyterian Church in Lowertown as a heritage building. A good crowd filled the IOF hall, and Dr. Gregory gave an interesting historical account which opened the discussion. All kinds of options were presented and considered as there were small groups of citizens got together and had discussions. In the end, interested parties left their names to spearhead an effort to retain the church. Next, the grand opening of the new Lakeshore Trail project took place at the south end of the trail near the Elahi campground. Our MLA Dan Ashton did the honors of cutting the ribbon along with myself, Don Gemmell, who represented Henry Seelman of the Trail of the Okanogans Committee, Connie Denisek, past chair of the Trails Committee, and Mayor Jacobite of Penticton. The new link is a great, safe addition for the Summerland Trails Network, but Emily Ashton was very hopeful that a similar link is not too far off in the future all the way to Penticton. But I must add that there's actually a lot of energy up and down the valley to have a valley-wide trail system, and it does seem to be coming together rather quickly. There's regional districts are on board, individual municipalities from Vernon through Lake Country and Kelowna. So I would say that, knowing how slow government moves, we'll see it actually at the quicker end of that kind of speed, if you get my drift. At any rate, on the evening of September 9th, my wife and I attended the showing of the Amazing Race Canada at the Waterfront Resort. Helen Walker-Matthews of TODA and the Summerland Chamber of Commerce introduced the showing. It was a great showpiece for the South Okanagan and particularly Summerland. It gave viewers across Canada a tremendous window on us and the region. On Friday the 11th, I had the pleasure of welcoming the 25 RCMP riders of Cops for Kids at our local RCMP detachment. It was the first leg of a 10-day ride. They anticipated raising in excess of $300,000 in their 10-day loop. And this is for kids in need in the Southeast RCMP region. Over the last 15 years, they have received donations of $3.2 million. And last year, they were able to help 190 children in our region. Also, this past weekend, I welcomed participants of the Happy Valley Cruisers Show and Shine show. Try and say that quickly. The park was packed with 220 entries and hundreds of visitors and locals to take it all in. I picked the Mayor's Choice Award. It was a pale yellow 1930 Model A Ford with a rumble seat, owned by Butch and Bev Schwanard of Vesuvius. It really was a real gem. And I'm afraid I was a little bit partial because my father owned one of those, and back in 1952, which is well before any of our counselors were around, I had to help my mother drive us to school. She was too short to reach the pedals. So I lay on the floor and worked the pedals for her to get out to the bus stop. And yesterday I attended the massive Dragon Boat Festival at Skaha Beach in Penticton. There were 82 teams with 2,100 team members plus families on top of that. A very colorful event, and there are lots of Summerland paddlers. The survivorship team, which is composed of quite a few Summerland paddlers, won back the Dale Charles Trophy after 6 years of having to see it go to some other team. And that's my report. CAO?
I do have a report tonight. I wanted to just go over a couple issues with council. One being the electrical billing issue. There's about 800 of our electrical customers that are experiencing some frustration with an invoice and correspondent provincial rebate application which they receive from us. We've had some discussions over that. It was stemmed from an audit by the Provincial Ministry of Finance in 2013 and 2014 around the residential energy credit and rebate program. And the district applied a credit to all the customers that we felt were residential users. However, in this audit, the ministry determined that some of the customers were not eligible for an automatic credit to their account. Instead, they needed to apply for a rebate. Those customers who should not have received an automatic credit were property owners who may have had mixed use of electricity, for example, some residential and farming or some residential and some home-based business. The audit found that the District of Summerland erred in giving these customers a direct credit, and instead they should have had the individuals apply for a rebate after paying the full amount of taxes owing. The province then billed the district $97,000 to collect that amount of tax, and council, as you well know, you did pass a resolution to rebill the customers who had received a credit in error, instead of putting the $97,000 in expense to the district operations, feeling it was most fair to bill those who had benefited by the oversight. However, when the invoices were sent out to customers by the district 2 weeks ago, we also included a form for the rebate program in the package, along with all the invoices that customers would need in order to apply for the rebate. The intent was to make the process as easy as possible for the customers to apply for the credit. Unfortunately, the auditor that was assigned to the district made an error when he explained the program to the district at the time of the audit. The auditor stated that customers would have up to 4 years to claim the rebates. When council voted to invoice customers the $97,000 back, they based part of that on the fact that they believe customers could claim the majority of the invoice back from the province. So many of our customers have contacted the Ministry of Finance and have been told that the rebate program, no longer exists. The ministry has said that the program is over and customers only had 2 years to claim the rebate. So our customers and the district are really caught in the middle of this. As council does know, your staff and council are working very hard with the ministry to have the ministry recognize that the district followed the advice given by their own staff, and that it's important that they honor this and allow for the rebate application. So at the time of this meeting now, there's been no conclusion by the ministry. They have confirmed that we're looking at it up at the Ministry of Finance level, so at the top level. We're going to continue discussing, and we'll notify our customers as soon as we receive a resolution. Unfortunately, it's causing a great deal of confusion in the community, and I do encourage customers to give us a call if they need some more information. And we're working on getting a contact number that perhaps it could get some more help from the ministry on this if they're unhappy, but we didn't get a hold of them this afternoon to get more information on call. So that's the HST credit conundrum. Just a real brief note on the sewer project that was started at Willem, Miltimore, and Tate. And it was, that's the one that was initiated through a local area petition for 25 properties. It is currently temporarily on hold while the engineer drawings are reviewed, and we're hoping that it'll be underway again shortly. And we've had a couple of residents asking what's going on and why did it start and why did it stop? And there's just a little bit more review that's needed before we'd be able to proceed with that. And lastly, next week council is at UBCM for the entire week. Just yesterday we got our last confirmation of our meeting requests. So all the requests that we put in with cabinet ministers and the premier were granted. So they're still fine tuning the dates, and we just had a late one change again today. So at the middle of the week council will have the calendar of those meetings.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 10, correspondence. There's a recommended resolution there. Can I have a councillor bring that forward, please? Councillor Carlson?
That the informational items included in the report dated for the September 14th, 2015 regular council meeting from the Deputy Corporate Officer be received for information.
Seconder, please. Councillor Barkwell? Any questions at all? I think anything to arise from any of those information pieces? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of receiving the recommendation? Thank you. None opposed, motion's carried. Okay, 10.2, committee and commission minutes. This is another recommendation to be received. I have a mover, please. Councillor Holmes, thank you, and Councillor Carlson. That's confusing. Yes. Any questions about any of the minutes?
Do you want us to read it out? We could do it.
Well, it will happen in a minute. Not in tandem, thank you, no. Okay, you might as well read that out, please. Councillor
Go ahead,
Holmes.
Okay, move that the committee/commission minutes included in the report dated for September 14th, 2015 regular council meeting from the Deputy Corporate Officer be received for information.
Okay, it's been seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Motion's carried. Okay, we're moving into item 11, Development Services Reports. 11.1, Development Variance Permit for 14612 Biagioni Avenue.
Yes,
CO?
We'll have the Director of Development Services do
Okay,
this.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This application is for the property at 14612 Biagioni Avenue. The subject site is located on Biagioni Avenue. It's 0.6 acres, 2,500 square meters. It's zoned RSD3, which is our largest residential estate lot zone. The property contains a two-bedroom, single detached house and a detached carport and a shop at the corner over here. The previous owners constructed a secondary suite without the required permits in this area of the building. The property has since changed hands, and the new owners wish to legalize the suite. And generally speaking, the district encourages property owners who have suites to legalize them through the building permit process when they can meet all the regulations. In this particular case, the zoning bylaw requires that all secondary suites are connected to the district sanitary sewer system and be in the sewer area. And primarily that is to make sure that most of the density increase that we're encouraging is close to the downtown core and close to other amenities in the community. And in this particular case, there is no sewer on the east side of Highway 97 in this location. So there are a couple of issues. The house is only 2 bedrooms. The suite is a single bedroom, so there's a total of 3 bedrooms in the structure. They have put in a new septic system that will handle the effluent from 3 bedrooms. From a staff perspective, we generally do not recommend variance permits where somebody has constructed something without the required permits and then come in afterwards looking for a relaxation of the bylaw to allow it. But in this particular case, the building is relatively close to the downtown core, being just across Highway 97. So if council wanted to support the development variance permit, they may want to consider limiting development on the site to a maximum of 3 bedrooms, which would allow the suite, but would provide other folks that may want to do the same thing with clear limits on what is acceptable in this particular case. And as I mentioned before, the district staff are not supporting the application.
Thank you. Council, any questions of staff, please?
Can we speak to this issue,
Just a
please, because it is our property?
Yeah, you're gonna ask for
Okay.
the.
I'm sorry. Yes, you may. Go ahead.
Thank you. My husband and I are here in attendance. We purchased the property in 2013, and at that time, the suite was as it stands right now. We have made no changes to the building itself. This past year, we have completely replaced the septic system from start to finish and are now simply asking for this to be designated as a suite. Your building department did go through the suite prior to our purchasing it and did approve the building with the stipulation that this breaker for the stove be disconnected, which it currently is. Approving the variance for us would simply mean that we can connect the stove, and that would be it, because there's no changes then. For us, that would make the most sense, as we are hoping that we are newly retired and we're hoping that we can actually travel in the winter and we could have somebody on site to be sure that we are not in violation of our insurance, our house insurance, while we're away. So we would appreciate it if you'd consider that.
Thank you. Council, any questions of staff or otherwise?
We should ask if there's anyone else. that
Okay.
wants to speak.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to this item, please? Don't have to do it 3 times. Okay. Councilors, any questions of staff? Councillor Carlson?
Are there any other suites in Summerland that are in the same situation except that they are permitted? Maybe previous to these rules being in place?
There, Mr. Mayor, there are a number of secondary suites in the District of Summerland. Very few, I suspect, have permits, and very few have been legalized through the proper process. Some are within the sewer area and could be made to be legal, and some aren't. We don't have a count really of, but we're aware anecdotally that there are many situations like this.
Councillor Trainer?
Can you just quickly explain what it means to legalize a suite exactly?
Generally speaking, to legalize a suite means that you've got a building permit for it, which means our building inspector has gone through and ensured that the life safety issues are dealt with, which are generally smoke alarms, proper exiting, that sort of thing. And when they meet those criteria, then they get issued a building permit and it becomes a legal suite if it's allowed in the zone.
Councillor Boot?
So if I'm understanding you correctly, because they didn't actually come in and talk to the planning department, just went ahead and built the suite, that's where the issue lies? Because it's not a legal suite, because it's not hooked up to the sewer system? So it doesn't meet that criteria?
That's
Is
correct.
that-
If they had
okay.
come in for a permit, we would not have been able to issue them one because they are not
Right.
connected to the sewer.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I have a question to our planner. With respect to the owner's comment regarding the stove being disconnected, does that mean that there was no comment by the building inspector at the time regarding the sewer hookup? It was strictly hinged on the stove hookup or not?
I don't know the exact conversation, but I suspect what had happened is they were identified that the suite was not legal, and to make the room become legal, they had to remove the
Oh, okay.
provision for the stove,
I
which
see.
means taking the wire right out back to the panel, so you can't simply just plug the stove back in. And then it's not technically a suite, it's just another couple of bedrooms and a bathroom, and that's fine.
I see.
Excuse me, I have a copy. I have the permit here, and it just says 220 circuit is still in the wall behind the cabinets. Disconnect the 220 in the panel, and that's simply it. And then it's marked as completion.
Okay.
And that was dated in 2011, 2 years prior to us purchasing it. It is strictly a one-room suite with bathroom, kitchen, except doesn't have a stove. And that's all there is in that
Okay.
building.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
To the planner, I need a little more clarification. So the suite and the addition was not actually built by the individuals here, it was by the previous owner?
That's correct.
So, because it was stated a little bit earlier that the owners had constructed the suite and they did not.
Yeah, these owners did not.
Right.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So they were sitting there, having purchased the property with this suite in place.
That's correct.
I see. Counselor Holmes?
Do we have a policy of any kind that we want to encourage people to come forward to legalize their secondary suites?
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe we have a written policy, but it's certainly an unwritten policy, and we do have some posters around the office that we do encourage people to come in and legalize their secondary suites, and there's a reduced permit fee for that kind of application, and the building code has actually been relaxed somewhat so that secondary suites have a lesser requirement than a second dwelling unit like a duplex, for instance. So they certainly are encouraged when they're in a situation where they can meet all the regulations, and they simply haven't.
Counselor Carlson?
If that was used as a suite with a stove in it, would it increase the insurance risk and the liability on the entire building? Is that the reason that these need to be
No.
legalized, I guess, is it?
I don't know that.
Could
Go ahead,
I
please.
just speak to that point? We have
Is that
currently got insurance on the suite, on the room, whatever you want to call it, attached to the house, and have told them that there is a stove in there, but it is not connected. So they realize that it is functioning. It's a separate dwelling, separate entrances and so forth.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I've got another question. So the fact that there was no permit, building permit applied for, that was the previous owner's responsibility to do that, correct?
That's correct.
So the people who currently own the property had nothing to do with either getting a permit or not getting the permit?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're, in essence, because they came forward, they're being penalized for somebody else's mistake or absence of commitment to get a building permit.
Possibly.
Yeah, okay. Counselor Barkwell?
I think the point is a building permit would not have been issued since it's not in the.
Right, okay.
And that raises a larger philosophical question of whether this council feels it's necessary. I mean, I presume it's to encourage density in the downtown area, but whether it necessarily encourages that or simply just discourages any density where it would otherwise be okay to have. People have a larger acreage. There's a million suites out there. They want them for reasons like these people have said. I'd like to visit that issue, actually, or hear the pros and cons of the whole concept and whether we should revisit that policy since it's come up.
And that's and just to be clear, that's a bylaw that is in place, so
Mhm.
it would be a bylaw amendment for sure.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with the bylaw as it is right
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further questions? Counselor Holmes?
No, I'd just like to move.
Okay, please do.
I'd like to move that we approve the application subject to registration of restrictive covenant limiting development of the property to a maximum of 3 bedrooms.
Seconder? Counselor Trainer? Okay, any further discussion? Go ahead.
I find this one really challenging because later in this meeting, we're going to look at a request to build a whole whack of houses on small lots using septic instead of sewer, which, as far as I can tell, is a very similar density issue, and it's outside of the urban growth area. So we're going to have to think about how many of these we want to allow, and if we are going to have an urban growth area with a sewer system and start allowing septic with multiple bedrooms and smaller lots outside of that, put some serious thought into it.
I think the caution is there that we have a residential situation in place, and this is an additional suite. That's not the situation in this later application. Okay? Councillor Holmes.
I understand that we want people to have building permits before they build, and it's the dilemma here is that, you know, we want that to happen, but we also want to encourage people to come forward to legalize their secondary suites. And I think we need to at some point address how we do encourage people to build with building permits. But I think if we don't pass this motion, then why would anybody come to us to legalize their secondary suite? I mean, to me, it's you know, if we want to encourage that, we should be encouraging it.
Councillor Boot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if you can answer this question.
This is, we're past
Mis-
the,
Pardon me?
we've had a motion on the table. It's been moved and seconded.
I
We
can't
can
ask
still
a
ask
question.
question.
You're in discussion period. so
Okay,
questions
but
are
we're
fine.
not asking questions of staff at this present
You
time.
can ask questions.
We can?
Yep, if you
Okay,
need
go ahead.
clarification.
Okay, I'm not sure if you can answer this question. But I'm asking it because I don't know. I don't know the answer to it. Is there an onus on any particular individual or entity when you're purchasing a house that has a secondary suite? Is it the legal responsibility of the vendor or the real estate agent or of the purchaser, like, you know, due diligence, buyer beware kind of thing? Or is there anything that would account for them having purchased this place and then being left in this position?
I'll answer that question.
Thank you.
And it is an issue in many municipalities. I haven't been in Summerland long enough yet to know the situation here, where at times realtors in other municipalities are aware of the limitations and the zoning. They do provide the zoning to buyers, and they generally know if it's a secondary suite, if it's allowed or not. So it is a buyer's beware. They are, the legal responsibility is that if you're buying something, know what it is and know what the rules are. If they had read the zoning, it would have said no secondary suites. Whether or not that's an outdated or not is a different story. That what's come up here. So essentially, it is a buyer's beware. That's why we apply Section 57s on those cases where they're, you know, the ones we've had recently, where they're large infractions, because then it's right on title and it's more obvious.
Any further discussion? So we have option 2 on the table here. No further discussion? Okay, well, we've got a mover and seconder. So all in favor of the motion? Thank you. Motion carries with 3 opposed. Is that correct? 2 opposed, sorry. Keep forgetting we've got 1 missing. Okay, the motion passed. We'll move on. Okay, I actually missed the boat there. Are there any opposed, since we should do that? Okay, we've got 2 opposed. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to item 11.2, development variance permit for 15416 Victoria Road. Okay, staff?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is another development variance permit for the property 15416 Victoria Road, which is just opposite Thompson Road in the north end of Summerland. The property is zoned A1 agriculture. It was the subject of a home site severance subdivision many years ago. It is on a sloping area of a lot, and it is subject to the A1 agriculture zoning regulations, which were drafted for large agricultural properties And there are anomalies where you have these small lots that are still zoned A1 agriculture. In this particular case, the proponent wishes to construct an accessory building in the upper left corner. And the location does not comply with the agricultural siting requirements in the zoning bylaw, which require a greater setback for accessory buildings in our residential zones. It does comply with the residential zoning requirement of 1.5 meters from the side, interior, and the rear. And they also wish to vary the size. Again, in the agricultural zones, accessory buildings for residential purposes are more limiting in an attempt to keep as much land available for agriculture as possible. In this case, they're allowed 100 square meters, and they wish to vary that up to 134 square meters. And again, if this was a residential property, they would be allowed to use 25% of their allowable coverage for accessory buildings, which would allow them to have a 300 square meter accessory building. So in this particular case, staff is recommending that the variance be issued. The residential regulations are probably more applicable to this property than the agricultural ones, simply because of the size and the use of it. But we don't have accommodation in our zoning bylaw for that eventuality, and that's the reason for the variance.
Okay, thank you. Okay, questions of staff, please, council? No questions? Go ahead, Councillor Boot.
When you mentioned that it doesn't meet the setback requirements because it borders an agricultural
Yeah, okay. That's,
area.
I'm gonna get Jeremy to put that in
Is
there,
that,
so I don't-
is that to prevent any issues with spraying or anything like that? Or,
No, Mr. Mayor, actually, in this particular case, the small lot itself is zoned agriculture as well as the surrounding ones.
okay.
And the rules for agriculture is you have to have greater setbacks just because the properties are larger and there's no need to get close to your neighbor,
Close to-
essentially.
Thank you.
Further questions? Anybody here representing the individual from Victoria Road? Yes, sir.
As was previously stated, I'd like to stick the workshop in the corner there. I physically can't locate it too many other places to the immediate right of where I want to put the shop there. I have septic fields, so I'm kind of limited to where I want it. And as you can see by the topographical details there, I have a lot of hillside to deal with. And that was the best usage of the property as far as we're concerned. And the adjoining orchard is my parents', which they have no problem with it. And also with the shop there, I'm also going to be eventually helping them maintain their farm equipment and so on as they're getting older. That was the whole reason why we moved back to the farm here a year and a half ago now. Thank you.
Thank you. So, any other questions, Councillor? Hearing none, would someone like to bring the motion forward? Councillor
Yes,
Boot?
one other question. Do you know, Mr. McIntosh, if the proposed accessory building is going to be used just for personal use or use? Oh, yeah. Or use, as you help your parents repair their farm equipment, or are you planning to have a commercial venture there?
There's going to be no commercial venture there, Tony. It's going to be used for personal use, for parking my truck in, woodworking, and some welding and repairs and farm equipment.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Carlson?
That a development variance permit application to vary section 8.1.6.A2 and 3 of zoning bylaw 2000-450 to reduce the rear and interior side yard setback to 1.5 meters for an accessory building, and 2, to vary section 8.1.9B to increase the maximum gross floor area of an accessory structure from 100 meters squared to 134 meters squared for Lot 2 DL 3640 ODYD Plan 39497 located at 15416 Victoria Road be approved.
Seconder, please. Councillor Holmes? Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. We'll take a vote then. All in favor? Thank you. None opposed. The motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're moving forward to 11.3. Says official community plan and zoning bylaw amendments for District Lot 2895, Vesuvius Division Yale District, except for plans M66B 12625, etc., on Garnet Valley Road. I actually had to take a breath, whereas Councillor Carlson did not.
Thank you, Mr.
Plan.
Mayor. This is, as you mentioned, an official community plan amendment and a rezoning at the far end of, northern end of Summerland. You can see, generally speaking, in the area of the district is right up by Garnet Lake, which is the north end of town. And there is a very large property, which is 223 acres, about 90 hectares. It's all located in the agricultural land reserve. It's designated on the official community plan as open space. It's subject to our environmentally sensitive development permit area and riparian development permit area. And through a zoning error, it is zoned preservation and protection. And we believe that that is a zoning anomaly that happened many years ago when we changed from a paper mapping to digital mapping, and there was lots of zones and lots of colors and lots of layers, and it got mislabeled as preservation and protection. That was not picked up when the zoning bylaw was redone recently, 2010, I believe. So it has officially got that zoning on it, but it doesn't need to have that zoning on it. The property is in the agricultural land reserve. This is essentially a bylaw amendment to both, to get our regulations in concurrence with the Agricultural Land Commission regulations. So the application is to zone it, or designate it as agriculture on the OCP, and rezone it to A2 agriculture, large acreage, so it can be farmed in accordance with our zoning and OCP.
Thank you. Questions, staff, please? Everybody's clear? Okay, can someone bring the motion forward, please? Shall we leave it as written, or shall we read it out, CAO?
You can say it,
Any
as
way we-
written is absolutely
Okay.
fine.
As written then, please. Mover, Counselor Trainer, thank you. Seconder? Thank you, Counselor Holmes. Any further discussion? It's really a cleanup, right? Okay, let's have the motion. Everybody in favor? All in favor? Thank you. None opposed, motion's carried. Okay, we're moving to 11.4. The zoning bylaw amendment to allow breweries, distilleries, and meaderies in the A1 and A2 zones, bylaw number 2015-024. Planner?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, again, a zoning text amendment, and this is in response to a recent amendment from the Agricultural Land Commission rules. And they have recently changed the regulations to allow breweries, distilleries, and meaderies as permitted farm uses, provided that 50% of the product is grown on the farm, very much like wineries and cideries. Our zoning bylaw did not allow those as permitted uses because they were not permitted before in the ALR. So again, this amendment is to harmonize our regulations with the Land Commission regulations. So we're proposing to add the distillery, brewery, and meadery to our zoning bylaw in the A1 and A2 zones, and to regulate them exactly the same as what we have for our wineries and cideries, which is a maximum height of 12 meters and setbacks of 15 meters from roads and 30 meters from other property lines.
Thank you. Questions? So it's pretty straightforward. So we're just expanding things to meet the ALC current situation, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, the motion, please. Want to bring the motion forward? Counselor Holmes?
I'll move as written.
Oh,
Can I say that?
okay. Seconder, please. Counselor Boot. Okay, any further discussion?
I just wanted to point out that both this bylaw and the previous one are subject to public hearing.
That's right.
That's, yeah, October the 13th.
That's right, and that was
Okay.
part of the,
Part of the
val-
written
part of this
statement.
resolution. That's a good point. Yeah, we didn't keep
Okay.
it separate on this one.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Councillor Booth. It's important. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. None opposed? Motion's carried. So we move ahead to 11.5. Zoning bylaw amendment for the Hunters Hill Cluster Development, 18654 Garnet Valley Road, and 19013 Bentley Road bylaw number 2015-27. Mr. Planner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure council is familiar with this property on the northern end of our community. It's a large 68 hectare, 170 acre parcel comprised of now 3 titles plus a piece of dedicated park. It's designated as rural residential on the community plan. It's zoned as country residential predominantly and has been zoned that way for many years. And there was a neighborhood plan adopted earlier to guide development on that site. A very small portion of it at the bottom right is designated within the ALR. And it's part of our environmentally sensitive development permit and part of our wildfire hazard development permit. And in this particular case, there's a portion, 6 hectares of the property that's already been dedicated as park. And there's a piece at the very bottom zoned A1 that is not subject to the cluster application because it's not zoned CR. And the areas that is subject to the cluster application is the majority of the property shown in the center. And the way cluster development is intended to work is where you have development rights on a particular property and it has environmental sensitivity, there is a tool whereby you can cluster the density or consolidate it into one area of the site and thereby protect all the remaining area. In this particular case, the property, the CR1 zone requires 1 hectare lots. And the application is to take the number of lots, which is 68, because it's a 68 hectare parcel, and consolidate them into one portion and thereby preserving all the remaining area. And the exact lot layout has not been determined yet. That will be determined as part of the environmentally sensitive development permit, where the biologist will go out on the site, do further work, and with the developer and the biologist will determine where the lots should be, so they're on the least sensitive area, and what land will be preserved. And staff are suggesting that there is no convention as to how much land should be preserved when you're talking about a cluster application. And so staff have made the subjective recommendation that you could put all of the development on half the site, which would be half hectare lots if you like, so that it could quite easily, the development could be on 1/2, so we think that the other half should be dedicated as park or preserved. So that would be 34 hectares of the site would become protected through a number of tools that are available to council. 1 is dedicated as park, 1 is given to a land trust for administration, or a third option of protecting the land through covenant and leave it in private hands. So the developer is suggesting they're offering up 30 hectares of land for preservation as opposed to the 34 that staff are suggesting. There are a couple of other issues along with the cluster notion, and one of those is the septic sewage disposal. There is no sewer in that area. It is not in the sewer area, and it's not feasible to connect it to our sewer system. If they're 1 hectare lots, they would all have their own septic system, and they would be approved as each lot gets approved through the approval process. In this particular case, if these are 1/3 of an acre lots, which is what the cluster is suggesting, is instead of 1 hectare, they would be 1,300 square meters and clustered into one portion, they would have to have a communal septic system as opposed to each lot having its own. So that, there is a document in the staff report from the engineering firm hired by the developer that suggests that it's quite possible. There's lots of technologies that support that. The details of that won't be determined until the zoning gets adopted and they choose to act on the cluster option. And I should mention that this is in addition to the current zoning, so at the developer's option, he could still develop in accordance with the CR1 zone and do 1 hectare lots if he wanted to, or if this new zone passes, he could exercise this option of doing cluster development and put all of the lots in a smaller configuration on one particular portion of the site. Another consideration is the road access to the site is from Sanborn Street, which has a right-of-way of 10 meters in one portion and 13 meters in another portion. And our minimum lot width is 16 meters, so they won't be able to meet the typical cross-section for access. However, the minimum access requirement in speaking to our Public Works Department is essentially 24 feet of asphalt, which is 7.3 meters, which our staff believe can be fit within the 10 and 13 meter rights-of-way. So we're recommending a covenant be registered should the zoning go through as a condition that advises any subdividers or future owners that that is a requirement of subdivision, that Sanborn be upgraded to 7.3 meters of asphalt for the full length from Bentley Road to the subject site. And the application is being recommended by staff, subject to the conditions noted in the recommendation, which is limiting development on the site to a total of 68 lots. That's 67 on the central portion and 1 lot in the A1 zoned area. And that a minimum of 34 hectares of land be dedicated as park, and that the Sanborn access be constructed.
Questions of staff, please? For planner, Councillor Carlson?
When you do the math of 68 lots on 1/3 of an acre, you get 9 hectares. So of 34 hectares, you now have 9 that are just designated as lot. So you have another 25 or so that are where? In between the lot, in between the clusters? Is it various clusters? I guess that's the part I don't really get.
My understanding is that the actual configuration, the lots may not be immediately adjacent to each other, given the configuration of the land. And so they may not be a minimum, they may all not be a minimum of 1,300 square meters. They could be slightly larger. There are roads and septic areas that are gonna have to be in that mix somewhere. So, but you're quite right. The staff are suggesting we aren't talking about how much land will be dedicated to park at the end of the day, but we're suggesting it has to be at least half of the site, and the development can be configured on the other half. It may get larger as the biologist looks through the site. We don't know those details yet.
Councillor Boot?
Just checking with you, you said a minimum of half of the size, so 34 hectares for the park?
That's correct.
In what I have written before me, it shows 28 hectares of the property as a park.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there's already been, let me see, there's already
Oh,
been
I'm
6
sorry, that's with the
hectares of
6.
land dedicated, so that would bring it up
Right.
to the
Okay,
34.
gotcha.
Great, thank you.
Actually, thank you, Councillor Boot. So I
Oh.
noticed the discrepancy and I hadn't done the math either, so. But I have a question to our planner. I think I may have misheard you, but you talked about the upgrading the complete length of Bentley as well as Sanborn. I think you meant just Sanborn, didn't you?
I meant just Sanborn. If I
Yeah.
said Bentley,
Yeah,
that was an
okay.
error.
Thank you. Councillor Barkle?
Just a note, I'd emailed a question earlier when I reviewed the material, and that question's been answered for me now, so our CEO can ignore my email. Your presentation sort of filled in the blanks for me.
That's good. Councillor Holmes, did you have a question? Okay. Okay, this, as I understand things, Mr. Planner, we have the 1 hectare policy in place that the Okanagan Basin Water Board has encouraged all the municipalities and the regional districts to adhere to. So that means that, and the rationale for that was that you could not have a septic field on a smaller parcel than 1 hectare because of potential failures, okay, which there have been when you've got a lot of houses on, say, 1/3 of an acre or less, 1/4 of an acre, 1/2 an acre. You get lots of ultimately the place gets saturated and you perhaps have a failure of the system.
That's
So
correct.
hence the 1 hectare rule. So how does the OBWB feel about cluster development?
Mr. Mayor, we haven't spoken directly to them, but this is a balancing of values, and there's always competing values whenever you talk of any development. This property was zoned for development many years ago. It is in a fairly high sensitivity for environmental values, all A1 and or ESA 1 and 2. So by clustering the development into one portion of the site, you are maybe taxing the septic system more, but it's going to be a communal system that wouldn't be individual systems on third of an acre lots that are subject to failure. It would have to be some larger system that has been engineered and proven. And that doesn't give the green light to others to have small lots on septic. This is saying you have 68 hectares, you have the right to put 68 lots in 1 hectare configuration. And this is a tool in this particular circumstance to recognize the environmental values on the site and try and deal with those as well as the development rates.
Okay, so where do the approvals come from? Is it Interior Health? Is it the provincial government in other areas?
I'm not 100% certain, but my understanding is if there's septic systems that have a certain effluent output, they can be approved by Interior Health. And if you're over a certain threshold, then the Ministry of the Environment is involved as
Okay.
well. And I believe that if it's, in this particular case, if it's one system for all whatever numbers of lots, assuming there's 68, that would require Ministry of Environment approval. It ultimately also has to be approved by the District of Summerland.
Okay. Now, the area that's going to be dedicated as park is going to be it's part of that is wetland or all of it?
Yes, there hasn't been a lot of work done on that yet. We do have, this is the slide of the neighborhood plan that was already approved, and the white areas are basically where development has been foreseen before. It's anticipated that most of the development will be along this central road here. There will be none over in this area, very little, if any, and over in this area. It'll be consolidated on the upper right-hand side. This would still be part of the parkland and protected as it is an ESA 1 ephemeral wetland.
So is that the proposed area for any communal septic field? Is that dark green area?
I don't think that information has been firmed up as yet. Again, the biologists and the engineers will have to get on the site if this is an option for them and firm up all those details.
So will that, environmental assessment and biologist report indicate whether loading that wetland with additional water is going to compromise the ability to absorb all that water or not? Is that something that may come up?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yes, absolutely. There will be an environmental assessment or a further detail when the environmentally sensitive area development permit has to be approved by council. That will come to council and that will identify how many lots are permitted, technically how much effluent for each lot is going to be generated, how that will be dealt with, whether it goes into the ephemeral pond or into an evaporation bed or into a combination of a number of things. So all that information will have to be provided and engineered before
Okay.
any approvals are given.
Because I understand as the rationale for the 1 hectare policy is that, you have a fairly large area of land and one residence. So the effluent that may come from that one residence is very unlikely to compromise the ability of the septic field to handle it. So, in this situation, we're depending upon the biologist's report and the environmental assessment to determine whether the wetland can handle it, or how the whole system might work. And I guess if things don't go in the way that, say for example, the environmental assessment says no, it can't handle it, then because of this being one of the two options, then the developer has the option to go back to his 1 hectare plan, correct?
That's correct, or maybe instead of 68 lots, there could only be 65 or 62
Yeah,
or
okay.
whatever other numbers work for the whole system.
Okay. I guess where I'm coming from on this is to what extent are we committed to this, given the, we pass this now, and then it goes ahead, and we're really depending upon the completion of a thorough environmental assessment, et cetera, to determine whether, you know, this cluster development can actually meet the requirements that it supposedly can.
That is correct. This is like many other zoning amendments. It's adding essentially a permitted use to the list that's already there. And it's up to the developer as to whether they want to action that particular use or not. And there still means there's a myriad of regulation they have to meet, both through the environmental assessment, the wildfire hazard, all the engineering requirements in our subdivision and development bylaw, interior health, Ministry of Environment. So there's ample, and in my opinion, there's certainly a lot of oversight past this point, should it be successful, to ensure that there's no missteps
Okay,
along the way.
that was my concern. The other area of concern is that this is a private septic system, probably covered by a bare land strata situation.
There are a number of options.
Yeah.
It could be, the most common would be a bare land strata where the septic system is maintained by the strata council, much like the La Vista system was years ago with 50 units out on Turner Street, and they had their private system for 8 or 10 years before the sewer system came
Right.
to town. Very similar to that. There are less common options. It could be a fee simple subdivision where there's one big common lot that has the septic system on it and it's maintained by a private contractor and they all share an ownership, although that's not a preferred option. Or it could be on a separate lot and maintained by the District of Summerland, although that's not a preferred option at the moment either.
Yeah,
There are a number
yeah.
of options.
I don't see the District of Summerland needing or having to, and I don't wish them to have to step in and rescue a system. So it has to be engineered to the degree where it will be done properly and be maintained in a manner that will not require the district to step in and take it over. Much as I think there's some inclination by some authorities to say that this guarantees, you know, satisfactory maintenance of such a system. But it's an additional cost for any municipality, especially in either dollars or manpower to try and handle it.
But I think it's
Sorry,
important,
Sheila.
it's
Go ahead.
just important right now to recognize that we're not, or make it clear that we're not entertaining the system. This is not giving approval to a
Yes.
system at this juncture of
Yeah,
time
I
either.
realize that. That's why I've been enlarging
Right.
on the idea of the environmental assessment. Councillor Carlson.
I was hoping to ask the fire chief this, but he's been called away. By doing cluster development, how does it impact the interface and does it make it safer to be building on the hills?
Mr. Mayor, I can only anecdotally suggest that generally speaking, if you have all your homes in one tight location, generally with residential landscaping kind of around them, they're more fire safe than individual houses far apart in the middle of the interface.
Yeah.
However, there is a wildfire development permit required, and typically they would have to have and there was a report commissioned at the time of zoning that'll have to be updated to do with this cluster notion if that goes forward. But they have to bring the fire hazard in the area down to medium, and that may be some fuel modification, it may be limitations on the exterior cladding of the building so they're not combustible, and there's a whole range of tools that they can use to get themselves down to medium, so that will be dealt with as well.
Councillor Carlson.
I guess the other thing that comes out of this, if a decision to allow cluster housing on country residential in one corner of town goes through, does that encourage people to do similar things and develop in a similar style with proper septic and continue this style of development further out from our urban growth area?
From a planning perspective, I'm hoping not. In this particular case, the property is zoned country residential already. It has been for many years, so we're dealing with the options that are available to us in this set of circumstances. There is policy in our community plan now that suggests that we shouldn't be zoning new lands to country residential simply because the efficiencies, generally speaking, for that land use type of 1 hectare lots isn't generally supported, but there may be situations where it's reasonable. You just have to deal with them one-off.
Councillor Barkville.
To the mayor's concerns about there's no such thing, I guess, as a fail-safe septic system. It seems to me that the cluster development, you know, has its own risks, but the other side of the coin being that if we get a bunch of 1 hectare lots, there'll be a real desire to have perhaps just as, you know, many lots as possible and some pretty marginal individual septic systems as well. So it's probably, you know, considering the two and developers' desires to maximize the number of lots they get, I would think that this might be the preferred method of development. And even beyond this, I kind of like the idea.
Counselor Boot, and then I'll respond. Go ahead.
If I could just ask for clarification.
This has to be-
If you have a cluster, say, of 3 houses, and you said there's a communal septic system, is it communal to those 3 houses or to the entire cluster development?
The thought at this point is it would be
Any discussion?
maybe 2 or 3 clusters of 20-ish each, and they would all have one, they would all be connected to a central communal septic system for all 68. But again, that could change. We aren't into those details yet. If the biologist suggests that there's better ways to do it and the engineering say is better, then we would obviously consider that.
Okay,
Counselor
thanks.
Carlson? Somebody else over here? Oh, Counselor Trainer, sorry.
I just want to make sure that I understand this right. So you're proposing 34 for parkland, and 34 would be set aside for the development. And on that 34 hectares, that's where we would put the 68 homes? Is that correct?
Sort of. We're suggesting there is a minimum of 34 hectares of land that should be parked regardless of how the development is designed. Once the biologist goes out there and the engineers go out there and they start looking around, the hope is that maybe they can fit it on less than 34 and the parkland might get bigger. But we don't know how much land the septic system may take up, how much land exactly the lots may take up. So, but we're saying no matter how you do it, we want at least 34 that will be parked at the end of the day.
And 68 homes is the maximum number?
That's the maximum because you're allowed only, in this zone, it's 1 per hectare. They've
Right.
got 68 hectares, so
Okay.
they can't go above 68.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, would someone like to bring the motion forward, please? Or a motion? Counselor Holmes?
I'll move the motion as resolution as presented.
Thank you. Seconder? Counselor Barkwell? Any further discussion? Okay, I guess I'll raise the point that I might have a few minutes ago. Got to adhere to my own rules in terms of engagement, but I think to sort of correct you, Counselor Barkwell, a little bit in that there should not be differences in quality and design of septic systems. They would have to adhere to specific standards regardless. And even if the 1 hectare, it was developed as a 1 hectare unit, as I remember the discussion of probably over a year ago, it was that there may have been 50 or 55 lots, but even that number would be subject to the ability of that piece of land or that specific lot to manage a septic system. In other words, it would have to have the perk test, et cetera, would have to pass, et cetera, before that lot could be designated and developed. So, it's a pretty strict system either way. Councillor Carlson?
So this goes through a first reading to a public hearing, which I like public hearings because I think that if people are vested in it, they'll show up and they'll tell us perhaps even professional input. It also gives us some more time to look at the options and find out if it's a good one. So I think we should, personally, I think we should go ahead and explore this a little bit further because part of it seems really good to me, the idea of staying close together and building on the hill, but we do need to make sure that we're not breaking our own rules by allowing septic and compact development.
So I take it you're not supporting the motion?
No, I am, and I'd
Okay.
like to continue to hear more and talk about it further.
Tonight?
No, it's going to a public hearing, so I
Okay,
want, yeah,
okay,
so
fine.
we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
You confused me a bit. Anybody else? Okay, call for the vote, please. All in favor? Thank you. One opposed? The motion is carried with one opposed. Thank you. We'll move on to 11.6. Development cost charges bylaw amendment, small residential buildings, bylaw number 2015-023. CAO?
This report, as it states, is to do with the, our development cost charges bylaw. The Director of Development Services and I have been working with the ministry in trying to get some smaller amendments made than what's being suggested here. Mr. McIntosh, did you want to talk to this, to the process we've been through?
Sure. The basic issue here is there was our development cost charges bylaw attempted to remove an exemption that's in the legislation that says any building that contains less than 4 dwelling units is exempt from development cost charges. And there's a further section that says if you want to remove that exemption, you can. And the District of Summerland believed it had removed that exemption only where there's a large development that a developer happens to want to put in groups of 2 or 3 simply to evade or avoid development cost charges. And that language was in the bylaw. We thought, and we were relying on that for the life of the bylaw until a developer came in and the wording isn't particularly clear, and they challenged that wording and said that the exemption overrode that piece of language. And we got a legal opinion, and the legal opinion said, yes, that's correct. The language is so confusing it wouldn't stand up in a court challenge. So in that particular case, the development cost charges were not paid in accordance with the rules. So we tried to close that loophole. We talked to our lawyer. We talked to the inspector. And it turns out that the inspector's position now is that you cannot remove that exemption partially. Either you remove that exemption entirely and every duplex and threeplex has to pay, or you exempt them and none of them pay. So we explored that option for a while, and then we've come to the recommendation that it's clear that that partial exemption is not going to fly through the inspector. So this bylaw amendment before you today suggests that that exemption is being removed. So essentially every single family, every duplex, and every triplex will have to pay development cost charges. Single families really are exempt because they pay at the time of subdivision when the lot is created, and you can only charge once. So a home builder will not have to pay that fee, but a subdivider will, and the threeplexes and duplexes will have to pay at the time of building permit.
Just further to that, it's just important to note that it's the premise is whether or not the development or the subdivision or the building adds an additional burden to our system. And if it doesn't, because it's been paid before, or that for some reason there's no additional burden, then that's where we have the power to waive it. The inspector, in conversations with the inspector, he also did highly recommend to us that we appeal to make this change, because this is best for the municipality given what the tools we have right now, but that we actually make a recommendation to the Development Cost Charges Review Committee at the ministry to say that it actually is favorable to be able to have these partial exemptions and to get the legislation changed. West Kelowna is currently facing exactly the same situation we are. When they went with their issue, they were referred to the work that we were doing here as well. And the problem is that so many municipalities, it slid through when development cost charges were, everybody was doing the bylaws. And so there are a number that have it, the exemption, but they're not valid bylaws, considered valid bylaws by the ministry.
Questions of staff? Councillor Holmes.
So if somebody has a large lot that they want to subdivide, if they build there's two detached houses on that divided lot, they wouldn't have to pay DCC, but if they built a duplex on that lot, they would.
Not really. I know this is very complex, but there's 2 opportunities to collect development cost charges. One is at the time of subdivision when a lot is created, And there's another opportunity when you get a building permit. And for all single-family development, because that's all that's permitted on the lot, we charge those at the time of subdivision. So this bylaw amendment really will make no difference to them at all. So when you, for instance, down in Trout Creek, where they've created 29 lots, they will pay 28 times the number of, times the development cost charges fee, because they get one, because they had one house before, and that one house has no extra burden, so they pay for all the other ones. At the time of building permit, we can't charge them, because we already charged them at the time of subdivision. So for single-family houses, it'd be net zero. Where the issue is gonna happen is if you built a threeplex on a lot before, you wouldn't pay. Three unit building is exempt from the rules, you don't pay. And we were attempting to say if you have a lot that will take 12 3-unit buildings, you should pay. But if you build one, we're fine with that. And that's where we got into trouble, and we can't do that. So now we're saying all threeplexes will pay, whether it's one on a lot or 20 on a large lot. And same with duplexes. They have to pay, whether it's one additional unit because they rezoned their property from single family to duplex. Now you can put 2 units on. They paid for one at the time of subdivision, so they have to pay a second one when they get their building permit. Or if you build 20 duplexes on a lot, you'll pay for all of them.
But with this amendment that we're looking at, in actual fact, we need to review them on an individual basis, because this is ultimately saying everything, single family, duplexes, triplexes, that they're all have DCCs. We look at them on an individual basis and determine whether or not they have been paid in the past. So some
That's
duplexes
correct.
probably will not pay in the future. Some may pay.
That's correct.
Just a minute, Councillor Booth. Does that answer your question, Councillor Holmes?
More or less.
I seem perhaps less than more.
It's not an ideal answer. It's not an ideal situation, which is why we want the ability to do partial exemptions and have clarity. This is the in-between answer with the goal to appeal to this the review committee so that they may make change. The ministry recognizes that the ideal situation is to have partial exemptions. It's just not in the legislation right now.
Okay, that's better. Thank you, Councillor Booth. And Councillor Barkwell?
So related to the question that Councillor Holmes just posed, we could be in the position where someone would come to us and request that we waive the DCC, and we would be in the position to do that?
If they had paid
that-
it in the past, if we determined that there was no additional burden to the system, or that they
Right.
had paid it through some scheme in the past, then we would waive it. We cannot
Okay.
randomly waive a DCC.
Right.
If I could interject for 1 second, technically, we're not waiving it. They
Yeah.
either
Oh,
have to
well.
pay or they don't have to pay. We're not making a determination that we're gonna waive it for you. You either paid before, so you don't have to pay now.
Right.
Or there's no extra burden, so we can't charge you.
Okay,
Those are the two options.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
thanks.
For Councillor Barkwell, yes.
So why, or maybe I'm missing something here, if somebody builds a duplex, why would we not want, and that's 2 dwelling units, why would we not want to charge 2 development cost charges for that?
Mr. Mayor, in the past, it's been determined that up to a 3-unit building is a more affordable kind of, or there's less margin maybe for profit in there, or it's a smaller development, it's done by smaller developers. So the burden of adding $8,600 a door to those kinds of developments that just simply drives the cost up wasn't deemed to be warranted, and the legislation exempted them. So it was an easy thing to say, okay, the legislation exempts them, they're small developments, it just makes them more expensive, we're not gonna collect for them.
But that's point right there is exactly what process, the political process that went through. When DCC charges first came in, the idea would be that it was for everything, that it was no different if you were a duplex or a 30-unit complex, that you were adding, that you should pay your contribution towards the system. Then that's when they came up with that exemption. Because of pressure from the municipalities who wanted to encourage small, single-family dwelling, the development. So the municipalities appealed to legislation early on, and that's when the exemption was brought in for the 1 to 4, or the.
You good? Any more questions? Go ahead.
So it's a philosophical sort of a choice then, I guess, on whether we would charge that for a duplex or triplex, yeah.
If whether or not you had in your bylaw
Yeah,
any
yeah.
exemption at all. And
Yeah.
right now, we're suggesting no exemption.
Yeah.
But if somebody has paid in the past, they will not be charged again.
Yeah, gotcha. Councillor Holmes?
And do we know what common practice is around BC for this? Is this
I think, and Mr. McIntosh might want to add his, my experience has been that exactly what is no longer in existence, single-family dwellings being exempted through a partial exemption, was the most common bylaw that that I have certainly come across in the past. I don't.
We did a survey of about maybe 15, I don't have it in front of me. I would say all the larger municipalities had no exemption, everybody pays. The smaller municipalities, about half and half had an exemption or not, and there was about 4 that had the partial exemption that we were trying to get, that is no longer permitted. So it's all over the map.
Okay. Councillor Carlson?
I move that bylaw number 2015-02, amendment of development cost charges, bylaw 2000-194, small residential buildings, be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, and then be forwarded to the provincial inspector for approval prior to adoption.
Seconder, please. Councillor Trainer? Any further discussion or discussion in addition to the questions we've had? Everybody's happy? Okay, call for the vote, please. All in favor? Thank you. The motion is carried, none opposed. Thank you. Okay, number 12, we're on to staff and other reports, 12.1. Oh, okay, this is for this, yeah, okay. Perpetual slide on Canyon View Road. Who's gonna deal with that? Is that?
Yeah, we have the representative from Golder here to present the report to council.
Come on up, go ahead.
Good evening, Council and Your Worship. So my name is Jackie Foley. I'm with Golder Associates, and I'm a senior hydrogeologist. I've got 20 years of hydrogeology consulting experience, and I've lived in Summerland for about 20 years, so I'm also a resident. I was asked by the District of Summerland to come to present the results of our assessment, and I should just say that I'm a hydrogeologist and not a geotechnical engineer. So this component of work considered both, and I'll do my best to answer any questions you have in terms of the geotechnical aspects, but that's not my area of specialty. So I did put together just a small presentation. I thought it'd be easier for you guys to have something to look at. I'm not sure, are you familiar with our report or the work that was done? No?
We've looked at it.
A little bit,
I
yeah,
think
okay.
you should,
Okay, so
do
this will
it.
give you the Cliff Notes version of that report. So Golder was retained to do a study, a geotechnical and hydrogeological assessment study on the perpetual slide. It's in the Canyon View area of Summerland. So I thought I'd just do a little bit of an intro on the site setting and the work that we did and then the results of those components of work, as well as the recommendations that came from that. And that's a picture of the slide area itself. So the site setting basically is in Summerland. You can kind of see this is a northward view looking up the lake. You can see Summerland up to the north, and then as you move south, I understand the pointer doesn't work, but I'm sure you're somewhat familiar with the picture. Giant's Head Mountain there to the north, and then Conkle Mountain off to the west. The yellow area that's circled there is the slide area itself, and it's just east of the Summerland Golf Course. And the blue arrows there kind of represent Trout Creek as it meanders through the area and dumps into Trout Creek and into the lake. So the scope of work that we did was basically a desktop study. So there was a site investigation component, but mostly it involved just reviewing available information for the slide area. So we looked at that information, we did our site reconnaissance just to kind of confirm what was going on in the area. We looked at water use numbers in that particular area, and then we interpreted the slide conditions and made some recommendations based on that. Okay, there's a lot of text up there, but it was hard to put this in a photo. So just in summary, these are our results. In 1977, there was a thesis that was done, and the main focus of that thesis was on this perpetual slide. And so based on kind of a review of that document, the slide mechanisms, it's not known exactly, like there's no actual physical work that's been done on the slide area itself. There's no boreholes on the slide area. There's some work done around the slide area, but nothing actually on it. And so a lot of this information is inferred based on visual observations and other studies in the general area. But basically the mechanism of the slide is you get an overburdened material, so sands and gravels overlying a till deposit. That till then potentially is overlying bedrock. And that till material or the bedrock could be composed of kind of a claystone material. And that material has a weak shear strength. And basically what that means is you've got pressures that build up, and it allows that material to slide under different circumstances, depending what's happening. And that's kind of the mechanism of that slide movement throughout the area. It was noted to begin in the 1914s, so a little bit after the area was developed. And most of that slide occurred until about the 1938, so the late 30s. And as I mentioned, there isn't any subsurface information actual detailed for the slide itself. In 1975 and 1976, there was some slide monitoring that was conducted. And that monitoring indicated that there was movement of that scarp. A scarp is just kind of a terminology for the different parts of the slide. And that movement was from approximately 1 meter a year up to 15.7 meters per year, that slide was actually moving downward in different areas. And at that time, it was also noted that there was some tie to seasonal changes in the area in terms of that movement. So increased displacement rates, so meaning increased movement of that slide, would be seen in the winter and the fall, and that seemed to correlate to increased groundwater seepage. That's all anecdotal. Someone went out, they looked around, and they said, hey, this area looks like it's more wet in the fall and winter than it is in the spring and summer. So there's no real actual data for that. It's just based on anecdotal. In 1979, Summerland retained Golder, that was before my time at Golder, to drill and install a number of monitoring wells. Those monitoring wells were installed around the golf course area, so at the head of that slide. And then we also installed some monument control points, and that was basically for surveying, so that we can kind of survey, see where those points were, and the idea was to survey them over time and see what kind of movement there would be. And then in 2015, we did our site reconnaissance out there, looked at information, and kind of tried to assess the limits of the slide. So this photo might be a little bit hard to see. The old slide area is dashed in the green there. And so just to orient yourself, north is up, the Summerland Golf Course is to the west, and there's that green area. If Ian can just kind of scoot around it, that's the old slide area that was identified in 1979. And the red dashed line is the new slide area that we've identified in 2015. Kind of limits of the area where visually you can see on the land surface that slide has progressed slightly outside of the former limits. And feel free, I don't know what the protocol is, but if you guys have questions, you're welcome to ask them as I go through, or you're welcome to wait till the end. Okay, so the results, the different components, the surface hydrology, so just not to confuse hydrology with hydrogeology. Hydrology is predominantly surface water, and hydrogeology in my world is groundwater. The surface water information that we found, basically irrigation was introduced in the early 1900s. So the slide movement wasn't really noted. There was no documentation till about 1914. And it's thought that the influx of irrigation water into that area, once it was developed, may have contributed to the groundwater in that particular area as well, and that groundwater then helped that slide to maybe move faster than it might have normally under normal conditions. So changes to the groundwater regime might have contributed to the instability of the steep slopes in that area. Silty water from downstream of the slide occurs on a regular basis. Again, that's kind of anecdotal. People have noticed over time, Trout Creek sometimes silts up. We all see that in Frechette. Happens for different reasons, but some of it was attributed in the area of that slide and in the area of Trout Creek to that material falling into Trout Creek, and then Trout Creek kind of scouring the side of that bank away and taking that material with it. And another study was done in 2009 It was on Trout Creek itself and on floodplain hazards associated with that. But based on that study, they had assigned kind of a quote-unquote very high hydrologic hazard rating for Trout Creek and flood potential. In terms of the groundwater monitoring, the boreholes that we drilled identified, as I mentioned before, kind of sand and gravel overlying till and bedrock. And we did do some groundwater monitoring, and the District of Summerland as well carried out groundwater monitoring over a period of time, probably around 9 years or so. There's about 9 years of data in terms where we were just monitoring water levels in those monitoring wells once a month over a period of time. And so we looked at that data just to kind of see if there was a general trend associated with that. And basically what we could see, and it makes sense, is that, and very common for the Okanagan, is that groundwater levels begin to rise in the spring, in May and June, but they actually peak in the late fall, and they start declining after that. So this was a little bit later, some peaks in late fall, early winter, not too uncommon for the Okanagan. Of the 7 or 6 piezometers that were installed back in '79, there's only one that's still remaining. So we went out, we tried to look for them. We had GPS locations, did a number of different things. There's only one left, and it was inaccessible. So we opened it up, we were able to look down, but when you put a probe down the well, it tells you how deep it is. That measurement didn't match our original depth that we drilled it to. And so, again, anecdotal, kind of based on some inferences, it's possible that that monitoring well has sheared off in the area of that slide. It could also be that somebody came and filled it in with sand as part of development. Like, there could be a number of different reasons that happened, but that's a possibility. And some areas of groundwater seepage have still been observed on the slide area, and again, anecdotally, that seems to still be occurring and potentially increasing slightly. In terms of the roads in the area, Canyon View Road is the main road that just bounds that slide to the north, and it has a history of water line breaks. So the district has gone out several times because there's been a break in the main line there, and they've fixed it and exposed that line. A lot of the piping has been displaced slightly, and that would, again, be able to infer that that was a result of the slide. And there are some photos in the next slide where it kind of shows some crescent-shaped pavement cracks that are showing that slide area. And we also looked at water use. It was a small component of the study. Originally, we thought, oh, let's do a water balance for the area. So basically see what kind of water is going in, how much water you're using for irrigation, agriculture, the golf course use, and see how much was actually maybe going into the ground to assess that component. But there wasn't enough information for the area to do a full water balance. But we did look at some water uses. Domestic water use ranged from 80 to 970 cubic meters per year. It's a large range, but it does kind of fall within the Canadian averages. The irrigation water use, it was a lot less than we thought it was going to be, 2 orders of magnitude less than the Okanagan Basin average for irrigation and for agriculture use in the Okanagan specifically. So that data to us is a little bit suspect. We've checked, the District of Summerland has checked, the numbers are correct, but something's not quite matching there, and so that's something to look into a little bit further. And then just mention that the area is on septic fields and not on the community sewage system. So this is a photo of Canyon View Road looking west. The slide area is to the left of the photo. And the golf course is just at the far end of the photo there. You can kind of see between the 2 cars there. I'll maybe just point. So you can kind of see the break in the pavement goes around like this and then comes there. And there's a little sign there from the District of Summerland that shows the dip in the road. So that's just kind of that area where you're seeing some potential movement from the slide. And that's kind of how we bounded the increase in that slide area on that first figure that I was showing you. Another photo just of kind of the slide movement, some of the evidences of slide. This would be an older photo of evidence of slide movement, is that you've got trees that are growing straight upright, and then the tree that's not growing upright and is kind of angled was growing at the time when that slide movement occurred, allowing it to shift. So these are just all different evidences of active slide activity on the site. And then again, just subsidence in a particular area. This was quite common throughout the entire slide area, just little depressions like this where the soil is giving way. This is a photo of towards the bottom. That's Trout Creek there at the bottom. And the purpose of this photo was just to kind of show that that material is moving into Trout Creek. I can't say on what kind of basis, but it seems to be regular, quote unquote, in that it occurs every year. There's material that falls into the creek then washes that material away. And the majority of that material is kind of a clay stone, silty, sandy material. This is just an example of one of the cross sections in our report, and I just wanted to put that in to kind of give a bit of a picture. So basically that material, sorry, I should have mentioned there's a number up there in terms of the volume of material that's moving off the slide area. So about 11,000 to just under 16,000 cubic meters per year of material that's being lost into Trout Creek. And those numbers were derived from several different sources and different procedures, so kind of as a check on each other to see if they made sense. The 11,000 came from the Rigland thesis, and then Golder did also some double analysis of what they had done, as well as looked at some other topographic changes to kind of come up with similar estimate, and it was in the similar order of magnitude. And so this is just a cross-section of that slide area. Basically, if you can imagine Trout Creek down at the bottom there where the F is, and E is kind of the upper portion of that, of the slide or the scarp. And the different dashed lines represent different years of topography that we have information for. And the yellow there just kind of shows the overall settling of material. So the material has been displaced from the actual slide area. The slide has come down in terms of elevation and is moving laterally as well. And I think it's between 5 and 10 meters of vertical change and I might have this mixed up, but 5 and 10 meters of vertical movement and 5 and 20 meters of lateral movement. Based on those, yes?
That's since 1970.
Since the late 70s,
Okay.
yeah. The slide activity, so the idea was we've kind of looked at all these things, taking all these things into consideration and come up with some sort of activity rating for the slide, reminding you that there's no actual data for the slide area, right? So this is just based on kind of visual observations and the limited information that we have. Came up with it's a little difficult to see, but basically ratings, activity occurring in the IA zones up top, and then as you move down towards Trout Creek, the ML is moderate to low activity, and H is high, and then as you get down towards Trout Creek, the VH means very high in terms of how much movement there is. So that takes us to kind of what came out of this study, was to come up with some recommendations of where to go from here. We came up with some land use planning measures. One of them would be to consider a 50-meter setback zone from the slide. You can see that, and I didn't mention it before, but the red dashed area, you can see how it kind of crosses Canyon View Road. That's that area that I showed with the photo. It extends onto some of those private properties and as well to the west onto some of those private properties. So having some sort of a land use planning setback zone might be something that the municipality wants to consider. Other recommendations to come up with emergency response planning, looking for alternate routes to the area if that road were to be blocked off in the event of a slide. The main water line that does go along Canyon View Road, there should be shutoffs for that road outside of the slide zone so that if something were to break, then it could quickly be shut off, considering that a loss of water from those pipes could be contributing to the groundwater volume in the area that then further contributes to the slide movement. Short-term infrastructure is something that can be considered as well. Road repairs, that's been an ongoing basis, but recognize that if if you can't control the slide, that could be just something that you're doing all the time, but that's something to keep in mind in terms of budgetary constraints. The water line itself, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure what it consists of, but we made a recommendation that you could replace it with a more flexible pipe material so that it'd be less prone to breaking. And then there are some overhead and underground utilities in the area. Some power poles are just outside that existing slide area right now, only about 5 to 10 meters outside. So as time goes by and that slide area, if it does increase, there's a potential for those power poles to, start subsiding or to eventually fall over. And obviously there's the one home, 10920 Canyon View Road. There's other homes in the area. It just happens to be the closest. It's not in any imminent risk, but part of that slide area seems to be crossing onto that property. So just what kind of considerations to have for any development on that site. In terms of Trout Creek flood risk, this would probably be one of the larger recommendations that we made and there's lots of different components, but these were just some of the recommendations that could be tied to it. But it would be to assess some flood scenarios, to monitor downstream for sudden changes in water level. The hard thing to know is there's no data for the slide now. And even if you had data, it's kind of like earthquakes. It's hard to predict when that exact event would actually happen. But there is some monitoring that you can do. So in the event that a slide does occur, a major slide that falls into Trout Creek, I don't know if you noticed, I should have pointed it out, but Trout Creek in that area is quite narrow. So if a lot of material blocks off Trout Creek, basically all the water will start to back up. And eventually it'll build to a pressure and eventually it'll release that material. Kind of like the breaking of a dam. And if that were to happen in sort of a catastrophic scenario, then all that material would wash down Trout Creek and into Okanagan Lake and affect homes and properties along that boundary. And so doing some sort of assessment to assess what those flood scenarios are like, you could do modeling, a number of different things. The monitoring for downstream flow could be just monitoring water levels at the bridge where the highway crosses Trout Creek itself and having an emergency alarm sound if the water level were to hit a certain amount. I don't know where the best spot for that would be, but somewhere accessible, and it should be real-time data that would send data right away somewhere else, not somebody coming to check it every day or every week. It would be real-time. Different things, public education, coming up with some bylaws regarding the floodplain use, again, emergency response planning, education and outreach. Irrigation best practices, there is an appendix in our report that just discusses some irrigation best practices information. So again, kind of conceding that the irrigation numbers for water use that we have don't necessarily make a lot of sense. They're a lot lower than what we think they should be. But assessing and reaching out to the agricultural users in that area to help sort that out, as well as doing best management practices for irrigation. Proposed surveying monitoring program. So this is to collect data actually on the slide area. This would kind of be one of the next steps would be to actually drill some test holes on the slide and actually get some real data in terms of what the depth of that slide zone is, what that material is made out of, and to put some monitoring instrumentation that could tell you actually what is that movement in the different areas of that slide. And then correlating water use and groundwater levels. So that would involve installing monitoring wells for groundwater. The intrusive field investigation would be boreholes and test pits with slope and chronometers. These are just kind of technical terms for different types of instrumentation that can be used in the area. The other recommendations would just be to further collect water use data. So for the golf course, obviously one of the larger users in the area. And then for your bylaw measures would be to come up with different bylaws that you could look at in terms of development in those areas and water use, possibly water use restrictions, or in terms of maximum water use in the area. Could consider putting, as they're all in septic right now, putting them onto community sewage system, where that would eliminate some of the water that's infiltrating into the ground. And that is the quick summary. Are there any questions?
Council? Councillor Holmes?
Just in terms of the irrigation, how is the water used by the golf course considered? Is that considered irrigation?
It is. It's both irrigation and domestic, but for the golf course, we didn't actually have domestic use numbers. I don't know if it's not monitored or it wasn't provided, but irrigation numbers were provided for the golf course. But even the irrigation numbers that they used were 2 orders of magnitude less than the Okanagan average. So it doesn't quite make sense in those numbers, and it could be a conversion error. But we've checked all those numbers. It doesn't seem to be that. It could be that the meter's not reading right properly, so maybe some double checks on those numbers.
Councillor Boot?
I'm not sure who this question should be directed to, so I'll ask you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
What are our obligations, I guess is the correct word, what are our obligations in terms of fish habitat with that quantity of silt and other movement into Trail Creek?
I'll let the CAO respond if you want to.
We're actually just starting to look into the obligations and responsibilities. One of our meetings at UBCM is with the minister responsible for emergency management. It's timely with this report and to determine their role in partnership with us in taking some of the responsibility in that it's the creek and it's a provincial jurisdiction and our responsibility. So we're on I think part of the resolution that's being recommended is that we start taking some steps to gather this information. This is really the first step of taking some proactive steps. So I don't have the actual answer.
Anybody else? Councillor Barkle?
If we were to go to the expense of drilling some holes.
Pull your mic in, please.
Sorry. If we were to go to the expense of drilling some holes and getting some more information, is that information going to tell us the risk level? Will it be? Is it going to be enough to assess the level of the risk?
I don't think like a one-time drilling program will do that. I think it will add information to know the exact mechanism of the slide. And so your question is more of a geotechnical component question. I think that it would add significantly to understanding what that problem is and the trigger, and therefore helping to develop a monitoring program that could then not so much provide advanced warning, but just the more data you collect, the better off you would be. So the drilling program is kind of the start of that collection of data. And it would help to assess the risks, not necessarily the risk to the environment. The risks have kind of already been identified, but it would help just to, what's the right word I'm looking for? Just to kind of understand it further in terms of whether all the risks have been identified adequately.
I mean, I guess what I'm really concerned about is the chances of it letting go completely.
Yeah, and that's the catastrophic event. If, should that happen, we've all seen different things on TV, different shows where there's been a slide that suddenly let go, that could happen. And so are you asking if the drilling program will help identify that risk?
Mm-hmm.
We know that risk already exists. I can't really say that it would help identify when that risk would occur.
Anybody else? Councillor Boot?
Ms. Foley? is
Sure,
it?
yes.
You showed a slide, it was a photograph
Mhm.
that showed what looked like to me like a crack.
Yes,
kind of.
in the soil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned that there are depressions, and we saw a couple of areas on one of your drawings, your maps here.
Yeah.
Does that indicate like piping, and are those sinkholes? So is there considerable movement of groundwater there, or is like I guess I'm asking, is that a symptom of something that could lead to a catastrophic event?
Yeah, I mean, the groundwater has always been implicated, if you will, in terms of exacerbating that slide area, the volume of water moving through there. And with, the addition of irrigation in the area, that water goes to ground and then goes into the ground and basically flows along the different horizons that are down there. So the volume of groundwater could be contributing to the speed at which the slide is moving. Those depressions are not necessarily, sinkholes isn't really maybe the right word for it. There are technical terms, it's called a graben, but basically when the slide moves, as material is washed away, so whether it's being washed away from that bedrock soil interface and is sloughing off into the creek, as that material then above it settles, so some material has moved off through scouring along that bedrock soil zone, that material breaks up, it lets go because of the pressures and moves out of the area. And when that happens, the soils on top then will sink in that area. So I guess technically it might not be called a sinkhole, but in common terms, that's what you would, you might see at surface. Yeah.
May I ask a
Yes, go ahead.
second question? Can you tell me what soil types are there? Is it like a heavier soil or?
Yeah, I can't because we haven't really done any drilling on the slide area, but above it in the golf course area, it's predominantly sands and gravels. And so we're not talking about the first foot of soil, like that's usually that, loamy topsoil material, but as you get into the overburden material, it's predominantly sand and gravel.
Councillor Holmes.
When material comes into the creek, it's generally the same place every year? Is it every?
Yeah, at the foot of that slide.
Yeah. And how big is that area?
I don't know because it's very difficult to access. So there's no roads that go down there. I mean, and I did not take that photo, but my colleague who hiked basically down there to take a look couldn't get down to the creek itself. It's quite steep slope there. So I can't say how large of an area, but in terms of volume, you kind of saw the 11,000 cubic meters. So you could come up with some, numbers in terms of length and width of an area that it would go into.
And through modeling, if it were to all go at once, through modeling, could you basically figure out where it would all go, all the material it would end up?
I believe you probably could. I'm not a modeler, but a hydrologist, I believe they'd have modeling programs that, depending on the parameters and the boundaries and the inputs that you put in and the knowledge that they have for Trout Creek, right, like a knowing the steepness of the side slopes, the depth of the creek itself along that entire way would help for the model to show what would happen. But it's only as good as the information you put in, and if the information is not accurate, then you're at the mercy of whatever you've put in.
So, in terms of investing money, is it, if you know that it's going to go at some point, would we be better off thinking, okay, well, how can we keep the creek running after the slide, whether that's building something underground for it to go in, or is it better investment in trying to prevent it?
That's a good question. I don't know that I have an answer for that. It depends on how you want to spend your money. I think, as a scientist or as an engineer, in order to design something that would then adequately handle flows, you have to understand the source of the problem. And so they're kind of go hand in hand, where you need to spend money understanding the mechanisms of what would happen so that you can engineer something appropriate. There's no sense engineering something that then gets taken out with the slide. So you kind of have, it's not either or. I think it's kind of both, whether you tackle it one at a time. I guess that's something that you'll have to consider and discuss.
Councillor Barkle?
The data in the report for water consumption in the area is last year's.
Yeah.
Are there similar numbers for this year,
For 2015?
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't looked at any 2015 data.
Because to say that they're not in agreement is
Yep.
putting it mild. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a serious problem there.
Yeah.
Very serious.
Yeah. So it's something that could be looked at in subsequent stages of, like, looking at the 2015 data, seeing if it's the same or if it's different. Yeah.
Okay. I think a lot of the questions and concerns that we have as we've been discussing things with you is the reason for having this motion in front of us. So, you know, we are, you know, basically short of data is what it comes down to. So this motion, when, if passed, will allow us to start gathering the kind of data that, and we do have the obligation, I believe, to carry on and do as comprehensive a data gathering and information base for the community to understand what our, where we have to go. So I think it's important that we move ahead. I'd like to thank you very much for your report. And so there's a lot of detailed material there. Thank you very much. Council, could I have someone present the motion, please? Councilor Carlson.
I'll move this motion as presented.
Okay, seconder, please. Councilor Holmes, thank you. Any further discussion? Tom? I think go ahead.
I just, well, no, it's okay. I'll bring it up with the CAO.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's, all I can say is that it's, as I said just now, it's important. Once you're aware of a situation like this, it's critical that you move ahead expeditiously in terms of gathering data to understand the situation more fully, and that's what I think we should be doing this evening. So all in favor, please? Thank you. Motion is carried, none opposed. So thank you very much, Ms. Foley. Appreciate your attending and giving us the detail in the report. Thank you. So we're on to 12.2, 216 permissive tax exemption bylaw, CAO.
We'll have the Director of Finance comment.
Flipping through the agenda, sorry. Just looking at those water numbers in here.
I think we actually sent something out to council in advance to check on this date as well. We weren't going to, and then we got our wires crossed. So I think you've actually already been asked if this date for permissive tax exemption workshop is okay.
Yes, I'm here now. So we have received numerous applications for permissive tax exemptions, and staff are working through them to populate a matrix for council to consider. And the question that we had for council tonight was, when would be the best time to schedule a committee of the whole meeting to do that review work? And so we have suggested that perhaps September the 29th may be a date that could work. And we are open to any other dates that may work better for council.
I think that's a Tuesday, correct? Right? Any concerns, council? Councilor Carlson?
I would prefer Monday.
And the only reason we didn't schedule it on Monday, or suggest it, that Monday is the date that we canceled the regular council meeting. So it's.
Exactly.
So we felt like it would, you just returned, some of you aren't getting home till Saturday or Sunday after being away for a week, but council could choose Monday if you decided so.
I know, Tuesday works better
Can we
for
choose
me.
to do it a little bit earlier? I'm supposed to play hockey on Tuesday nights.
You can choose, if council's available, there's nothing, you know, the 7 o'clock time
Could it
is
be
not.
6 o'clock? I don't know if that, and be done by 8? I don't know if that.
We don't know. Are you,
Just a suggestion.
are you critical to the team's effort? Have you
I
scored
play
any-
goalie.
It's kind of critical.
I hate to say it, but
It's fine, I'll come to the meeting.
I responded to Karen saying that was not, that I couldn't make that night.
Oh, I didn't realize that we
Yeah.
had that response.
it's fine with me, though. There you go.
Monday
So-
night is certainly a possibility for you. I mean, that the Director of Finance actually suggested Monday to start with, and I overrode her and said, well, we just canceled a council meeting that night, but
Yep.
it's not the same preparation. The people
just
that are
gonna say.
doing the most of the preparation work will be here. It's not the same as preparing a whole agenda, which requires more of my input, so I can review, when I'm away, what the work that they've worked on.
Yeah, I think that was the rationale
Mhm.
for canceling
Yeah.
it. You know, the amount of work that goes in prior to council evening is considerable, and you need that, you know, week ahead to prepare the reports, you know, look at everything, put everything together, and Jeremy's work's cut out for him as well. So I think, given that it's, as you say, staff is here that would be putting that together, it's a matter of us reviewing it at the meeting more than anything else, isn't it?
Yes.
It'll be a presentation, so
Yeah,
they'll be
yeah,
walking through.
Right. Counselor Barkle?
28 works for me, and it's a one agenda item meeting, so yeah, it's a lot
It works.
less than a full council meeting.
Anybody else? You're fine? Okay. 28's okay?
Thank you.
Okay, I mean, I'm fine with it. I'll be back in time. It's just that there wouldn't be the time to prepare for anything else.
I'll talk to them, sorry.
Any other questions?
No, I'll check with Council Holmes later.
So can you attend? The 28th?
We can chat.
Okay. Okay, so, somebody like to move that resolution, please?
What's the amendment?
With
Yes, with the
September
amendment.
20.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, the amended motion.
Well, it's not even a motion yet, so you can read it as.
It's a resolution. Go ahead.
Okay. That a special committee of the whole meeting be scheduled for September the 28th, 2015 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers to review the applications for 2016 permissive tax exemptions, and that the meeting be advertised in the Summerland Review.
Okay, seconder, please. Thank you. Counselor Barkle? All in favor? Thank you. Motion's passed. We'll be having that meeting on the 28th. So be prepared to be here on the 28th. Okay, we're moving ahead to 12.3, appointment of deputy corporate officer, CAO.
So this one's just a housekeeping item, as council likely remembers. In the absence of having a deputy corporate officer, before Katie Karn was hired, you passed a resolution to appoint the CAO in the case that documents needed signing and Mr. Deniger wasn't available. So now that we have Katie Karnes on board as a deputy corporate officer, this just appoints her as a signing authority in absence of a corporate officer and takes me off.
Okay, so a lot less work for you then. Okay.
And way more for her.
Yeah, way more for her. Okay, would somebody like to move that recommendation? Counselor Carlson?
I will move that
Okay,
as presented.
okay, seconder? Counselor Barkle, thank you. All in favor? Motion's carried, thank you. None opposed. Okay, we're moving on to 12.4, the Summerland Healthcare Auxiliary, CAO.
And we can have the corporate officer speak to this one.
Okay.
So the healthcare auxiliary, as many people know, it is the thrift store, I believe, on Victoria Road North.
Yep.
And they have been spending a fair amount of money to dispose of items that have been donated to them, which really belong in the landfill. This is a common issue with a lot of donation-type organizations all across the country. And it's materials that could be used elsewhere overseas is the idea, and some other organizations have found a way to do this working with partners. And so what they're requesting of the district is that we work with them to find a little spot for a trailer where they can put these things, and then as needed, this trailer would be driven away to the coast where they would be shipped overseas, and these items could actually be used by people rather than simply using up space in our limited landfill. So staff at this point are recommending that we work with them to try and find a spot. We've got a couple ideas. One would actually be up in the landfill, which would be good for security, because some concerns have been brought up in terms of theft or vandalism, but this would be a secured location monitored by staff. Another potential location could be tucked up next to the arena, take as little space as possible. It's not a trailer that would be accessed by the public. It would only be volunteers working with the auxiliary. So we see it as a benefit to both the community at large and reducing use of landfill.
Questions? Counselor Holmes?
I presume we're not committed to having the exact same location for 5 years if we decide that we're gonna have it one place and we wanna use that land for something else, we can move it somewhere else.
We'd make sure there's flexibility in the agreement, yes.
Okay, so am I understanding this that these are materials that wouldn't be able to be sold at the thrift, or,
It could be something like an old used sofa,
okay,
which they probably don't have room for that. Or
Okay,
items
so-
of clothing that are so worn out that they would be of
so is the
non-sale.
material recycled, or are they actually to be transported and used somewhere else as is?
To be used by others.
Really? Okay. Okay, thank you. Someone like to bring this motion forward, please? Counselor Barkle.
I move that the Summerland Healthcare Auxiliary, that the staff be directed to work with the Summerland Healthcare Auxiliary to find a suitable location for their trailer on District of Summerland property, and if successful, that the District of Summerland provide the use of this property to the Summerland Healthcare Auxiliary for the purpose at no cost for a renewable term of 5 years, and that mayor and the corporate officer be authorized to execute all documents related to this matter.
Seconder, please. Counselor Holmes. Okay, any other discussion? It's fairly straightforward. Okay, all in favor? Thank you, the motion is passed unanimously. Okay, going to 12.5, Crown Land 10-year Summerland Yacht Club.
I think the corporate
CEO?
officer
Oh,
may speak to that
go
one as
ahead.
well to start with.
So this could be a short-term measure, but the idea is to have a quick measure of getting a solid lease in place for the crown land currently used by the yacht club, to ensure there's not a mismatch between our month-to-month general head lease and the current sublease that the district has with the yacht club, which expires at the end of 2016. So we're just making sure that there's a solid legal document there that gives us a long-term right to that property, and thus the safe assumption that we can continue leasing it to the yacht club for a longer term.
So basically, the application's been made, and we require a resolution to council for support of the application. It's nothing to do with the yacht club at this moment. It's just for our application for the lease on that property.
I see, okay. Okay, any questions at all? I think, yeah, okay. Could someone present the motion, please? Counselor Trainer.
I'll present it as written.
Okay, thank you. Seconder, please. Counselor Holmes, thank you. Any further discussion? Counselor Boot.
So the district is applying for the lease, and then we would in turn sublease to Summerland Yacht Club?
Then we would bring a proposal to council for the sublease to the yacht
Okay.
club, to the yacht club.
Great, thanks.
Okay. So as I see it, it's the idea is to make sure that the yacht club can move ahead. Instead of on a month-to-month basis, we'll move ahead on a more sure footing for them.
It would give us that opportunity.
I see, okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Motion is passed unanimously. Now, we have 12.6 here, but Skateboard Park Committee, but I understand we're not really in a position to discuss it. I'd like to defer it, is that correct?
Yeah, we suggested at last council meeting that we look towards creating a committee structure for the skate park. And as I was working on the material, I was presented with material that has been done previously, which I had not been realized that it was as extensive as it was with the request for proposals and the designers. And I just discovered this and started to review it. And so what I suggested to the mayor is that council defers this consideration of the committee till the next meeting, and I'll bring a report on the skate park and where we are at and where we're moving at that time, and then the committee. We have informed the youth that have been asking that there will be a committee, and there's likely that council will want youth participants on it, so they know that it's coming. It's just, I think, there's a number of loose ends, and if we present the package next time, we'll all be on the same ground of where we're at with it.
So could I have a motion for deferral, please? Thank you, Councillor Boot, seconder. Councillor Holmes, thank you. All in favor? The motion is carried, none opposed, thank you. Okay, any new business, corporate officer?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. New, and we're into bylaws, number 14.1, outdoor smoking regulation bylaw now, number 2015-020. So, CL,
This is.
corporate officer?
Sorry, this is for, I don't have a report.
Oh, sorry, yes, this is simply third reading.
So that if council recalls, you passed first and second reading at the last meeting of the no smoking bylaws, and this is simply a look for third reading.
Okay. Okay, would someone like to bring forward the recommended resolution, please? Councillor Trainer, thank you.
That the outdoor smoking regulation bylaw number 2015-020 be read a third time.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Carlson. Okay, any questions at all? I think this is a straight procedure. Okay, all in favor? Thank you, the motion's passed. Okay, we're on to councillor reports, starting with Councillor Trainer. This is sort of our activities of the last couple of 2.5 weeks plus.
Last Thursday, as part of my work with the Summerland Healthy Communities Committee, I attended an event called the Fall Energizer in Penticton, and it was hosted by the Okanagan-Similkameen Healthy Communities Coalition. The event provided an opportunity for municipal leaders, government staff, and Interior Health to gather and share initiatives that we've all been working on to make our communities healthier. Under the umbrella of the Okanagan-Similkameen Healthy Communities Coalition, the Summerland Healthy Communities chapter was formed in the spring. We decided to start with a relatively small project to get us going and show the greater community what we're all about. So this fall and into next spring and summer, we're going to be working on creating a new community garden for Summerland. Our committee is made up of Patricia Park and Sandra Turnbull from Interior Health, Joanne Millar from Summerland's Rec Department, Jenny Mitchell, Rick Gray, Linda Van Alpen, and myself, and Councillor Boot is also an associate member. As well, under our partnership agreement with Interior Health, we are very fortunate to have a master's student working with us. Melanie Wilson is completing her master's in public health with the University of Victoria. So over the next 8 months, she'll be working with us on our project, and I'm really looking forward to that. When I was at the Fall Energizer workshop as well, I spoke with Jerry Lynn Mackey from the Canadian Cancer Society, and she praised Summerland Council and staff for our new outdoor smoking bylaw. Princeton and Osoyoos have also recently adopted similar bylaws. And finally, on Sunday, I went to the Summerland Sunday Market, and it was really great. Next weekend is the last one of the year, so I encourage everyone to go and show their support. And I just wanted to say congratulations to the Rotary Club and the vendors for a very successful first year.
Thank you. Councillor Barclay.
I never attended any events that our esteemed mayor was not at as well, so I won't bore the council with my report of the same events.
Thank you very much. Councillor Boot.
Let's see, what can I cross off of here? I guess just a couple of things to report. First of all, the Chamber of Commerce meeting was canceled last Thursday, so I don't have an update on that. As part of the Cultural Plan Task Force, I have been asked to sit on the Agribusiness Forum, which is a series of public meetings that are coming up. So thank you, Councillor Holmes, for inviting me to do that. That will be great. We had a Water Advisory Committee meeting last Wednesday? Yeah, it was Wednesday. Last Wednesday. And we're carrying on with that. The next meeting is during UBCM, but they'll be just fine without me. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carlson.
I think I got to have more fun than all of you in the last 2 weeks. I went to the Armstrong Fair to represent the mayor. Got to go to a mayor's lunch and then to the fair and to the rodeo. It was a lot of fun, and I met lots of important politicians from the North Okanagan. The only other thing that I have to mention is that this weekend is the Friends of the Gardens Autumn Garden Tour, and it's in Penticton this year. There's edible gardens, natural gardens, water-wise gardens, and town and country, so I don't know what that means. I guess a little bit of everything. And that you can get tickets in Summerland at Martin's Flowers, in Penticton at Garden Works, and Books and Things. And it's got lots of sponsors, and these are probably some of the best gardens in the Okanagan. And if you're around on Saturday and you're into gardening and outdoors, you should probably find yourself a ticket.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
I had a lot of fun too. On Labor Day weekend, I attended the Raining Man Cultural Festival that was held on a farm near Olympia, Washington. I was pleased to accept an invitation from the organizers to lead a workshop on the cultural identity of the Cascadian bioregion. For those who don't know, a bioregion is a geographical area whose boundaries are determined by natural characteristics as opposed to straight lines drawn on a map by humans. So a bioregion is distinguished by its native plants and animals, climate, landforms, and especially its watersheds. So I think everybody's going to be hearing a lot more about bioregionalism in the days to come, because it's very important if we ever hope to harmonize the way we live with the place where we live. So the droughts and forest fires this summer are a good illustration of how nature doesn't really respect our human-defined boundaries and how we need to think in a more ecological context. So the bioregion where we live is called Cascadia. It's basically the watersheds of the Columbia and Fraser valleys, the rivers. So everything that flows from the continental divide into the North Pacific. That includes most of BC, all of Washington State, Oregon, Idaho, and the Alaskan Panhandle. So there's ecoregions within bioregions, and so our ecoregion is the Okanagan. So, and Raining Man Festival is celebrates the Cascadian bioregion, and it's has music, spoken word, arts, creation, educational workshops. It's quite a special event and just deals with the region's ecology and our culture. So anyone interested in Cascadia or bioregionalism in general, just feel free to contact me. And if I was at the opening of the Trail of the Okanagans with the mayor and a few other councillors, and if you think of the vision for the whole Trail of the Okanagan from Sicamous all the way to the border, it'd be nice as a bioregionalist to hope that vision doesn't stop there, that our colleagues in Washington, Oregon will pick up on this idea, and just as we can drive on Highway 97 all the way down California, it'd be great if one day we could bike through the same interior Cascadian corridor. That's my report. Or hike, yeah.
Brutal. Thank you very much. So do we have any comments from the public, please? There's an opportunity here at the end of the meeting.
Hi. I'm Carol McKenzie. I moved here in 2003, and I'm utterly in love with this town. We are the only Summerland in the world. Did you know that? There's Summerfield and Somerville. There's only one Summerland, and that's us. I was at a meeting a couple of weeks ago about the Presbyterian Heritage Church? And some of you were there. And when I got home, I realized we are sitting with a golden egg. The acoustics in that church are wonderful. The town has, and there was an article in the paper on Dave Thomas. He's a sound engineer. And he says the acoustics are wonderful in the church. There's this great pipe organ. And I think this would put the town on the map. I thought of Diana Krall, and Dave Thomas happens to know Elvis Costello, her husband. They have 2 young boys. They could come here for a week in the summer. They would buy the church. It would be called the crawl space. And I know it's easy to have someone buy a building. It's the maintenance. But I think since it's heritage, did I hear correctly that any repairs could perhaps be covered by a grant? It would be wonderful. And we've been talking about culture for the town. Would be perfect. The library was paid for the building with a small percentage of the tax over the years. Does council have the authority to kind of have a cultural tax? Because I think there's going to be some other churches that perhaps will fold over the years. They won't all be heritage and they won't all be with great acoustics, but we could be a town of saved churches too.
Yeah, no.
So, thank you.
I know our CAO will be taking some notes regarding your comments and
How to spend your money.
yeah. I guess I have a question though. What was the gentleman's name again that's in the back?
Dave Thomas.
Dave. I guess my question is the interior design and dimensions of the church. Considering I don't believe there's been any movement of walls, was the design and measurements of the interior specifically done in that manner to enhance the acoustics? Do you know?
That's what I was told, and it's the height which is the important thing
I
in
see.
recording, and the walls aren't parallel. So,
Okay.
you know, I think that's what you want is a room that's,
High enough.
40-foot ceilings.
I
at
see.
least.
I've got a question for Dave. Have you talked to Diana Krall about this?
No.
No.
I didn't even know she was in town. I think she spent the summer here in Truck Creek and loved it, so.
Oh, thank you very much.
No, I'd approached Tom Lambin, who had Blue Wave Studios, because he just sold his building for an undisclosed amount of money. And he has all this recording equipment, so I tried to set him up with another guy who had a studio, but he said, the guy in the States didn't want it, so I said, why don't you put it by this church? And so he never answered me. So I think he's been 30 years in the studio, and he suddenly got this money and got out, and he needs to take a breather for a while, so. But
Well.
I thought it would be, I mean, today, the recording equipment is so cheap, but, it would be a worthwhile facility to save, for sure.
Thank you. Anybody else like to make any comments? Okay, hearing none. Any? Oh, go ahead, ma'am. Yes.
My name is Gloria Flaman, and I'm one of the volunteers at the thrift shop. So I want to say thank you for approving our recommendation, and look forward to working with the mayor and some councillors. I think probably most of you know that we are a fairly big business in Summerland, and this, the dilemma of what we do with what we call discards, but they're still recyclable discards. It's ongoing with all of the auxiliaries and other organizations like us. So, we really are thinking that if Summerland helps us to do this, we'll be the first ones out the gate, and maybe others will follow. And I think it's a really great, it's a plus for the community, and it speaks well to our councillors and that to support us in this. So thank you very much.
Well, I think the Summerland Thrift is a hectic and busy organization.
We are,
Anybody
yeah.
who tries to find a parking spot on Tuesday knows all about that.
Well, actually, we just finished changeover this weekend. Tomorrow will be crazy. It will be a crazy, crazy day. So come see us.
So, no, we're happy to be able to perform that task and
Good,
allow
good.
the space. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any comments or questions from the press? None? John? Susan? You're okay? Okay, can I have a motion for adjournment, please? Councillor Barkwell. Seconder. Councillor Carlson. All in favor? Thank you. Motion's adjourned.
Help
Meeting's
yourself to
adjourned
an
now.
apple on the way out the door.